Hello, everybody. This is a Lamley showcase. Right as I started that, a bee landed. I've got Edith in the background. She's hanging out watching squirrels. I've got RLC in front of me. And hopefully you saw the title of this video because it is true. I don't think RLC has ever been better. I also don't think it's ever been worse. And I'm going to walk through that. I've got all of these RLC models that I haven't opened yet. And I wanted to open them. I want to see them outside of the package, so we're going to do that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about RLC because there's been a lot of opinions about RLC. RLC being the Hot Wheels Redline Club, you have to be a member. These drop at Mattel Creations, maybe 2 or 3 Tuesdays a month, sometimes maybe 2 Tuesdays a month. There seems to be a lot dropping lately. Premium Hot Wheels, more premium than, say, Car Culture, but we'll talk through that. A little bit of the history of RLC as we open these up, but we will go ahead and get right to it, which is why we'll open them up. I've got 3 that come in acrylic cases, and then I've got these in the blisters. I think we can start with the acrylic cases. I'm not going to do them in order of release. We're just going to open them up. And so what am I talking about when I say never been better and never been worse? We're going to start with the latest BRE Datsun 510. This is actually a companion piece. Well, you could call it a companion piece to the original BRE number 46. That's in Spectre Flame paint. I'll get this out. That's based on the original John Morton number 46. This is also a companion piece to the Z that was released last year in this chrome. Here is the box. There is that if you want it, and you can freeze the screen there, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at the model. I will go ahead and I will probably take the acrylic case off. I don't know if I'll well, maybe I will unscrew them as we go. We could probably do that. Let's go ahead and I can show you. I mean, I have to show you everything because these have already out. If you bought them, you already have these, I would assume. Maybe unless you're in another part of the country. But yeah, this is pretty sweet. Opening hood on this one. I'll show the engine very quickly here. And we can also, well, I'll unscrew it and then we can put it on the turntable. Because I do display these loose actually, and so I will take them off of this as well. So I'll go ahead and do that. But let me just explain. Let me just start why it's never been better, because I think the models have never been better, and we'll talk through that. It's never been worse because I think the concept of the RLC, I think Hot Wheels and Mattel are really trying to figure out, as popularity in collecting, as popularity in RLC has really blown up over the last few years, kind of during and post-COVID. I think Hot Wheels is trying to figure out what to do with the RLC. We'll go ahead and put this on the turntable. This Chrome Zero, like BRE approved. It's obviously kind of a fantasy car in some ways, right? There was no black 00 as far as I know. But this, in this kind of dark gunmetal chrome, is just fantastic. Absolutely loves, and the red interior is really cool on this one too. But yeah, it's kind of loosely based on the number 46. Maybe I'll do a little picture later of all of these together, but right now we're just got to bust through these RLCs. But this looks awesome. I love the red axles on this, and that might be my point. This is an upgraded casting with the opening hood done for RLC. It's obviously based on the original Junimai 510 casting, but they modified it with an opening hood and this really cool engine piece. A few years ago for RLC. We've seen it in conventions and we've seen it in RLC, that kind of ultra premium kind of setup. And that, I think, has been fantastic. We get these models that, are definitely upgrades. So if you know the history of the RLC, let's do the 64 Chevrolet Impala, SS Impala, lowrider. If you know the history of the RLC, it started as kind of a more nostalgic, retro, vintage vibe back in 2000, what was it, 3 or 4 when it started. Might have been 1 or 2, someone who knows history. And so they were typically like nostalgic throwback castings from, you know, yesteryear kind of era, like the 60s and 70s, a lot of originals, not licensed castings, or existing castings that were originals done in an upgraded form, like Spectraflame paint. They brought in a, you know, Spectraflame, which is the original paint that the Hot Wheels from the 60s had, but it was in more upgraded. They fooled around with that. There's history there. But that was kind of, it was supposed to be kind of this kind of collector, nostalgic, kind of really aimed at the deep, deep collectors. And the deep Hot Wheels collectors back in the day, 20 years ago, seemed to be more retro, you know, vintage vibes was kind of their deal. Well, here's I just pulled that out, but like, I'll show you the box here. This is pretty sweet. And so they would make, you know, 3,000 at a time. Some of them would sell out, some of them wouldn't. Anyway, that's how it started. And so it was popular amongst that type of collector, that kind of old school collector, I think. But, oh, this is so sweet. Holy cow. But different when it came to, you know, like, it really wasn't, I mean, Hot Wheels hadn't really figured out the premium game either at the time. But here, we'll just put this on the turntable in various forms. If you're not familiar with this casting, this is Brendan Vituski's design, but it has these adjustable wheels, so you can go, you know, fully hydraulic up, you can go fully smash down, you can obviously pivot them in a million different ways. It's really, really cool. We'll put them on the turntable in various positions, but I absolutely love the color on this, and the gold rims are just wicked cool. Love that it has a gold steering wheel as well, if you can see that. I think that's pretty sweet. Interior done really well as well. We'll put it on the turntable a few times. But anyway, so that was the history. So just walking through that. So that was the history of the RLC. And then over time, it kind of gained in popularity, and they started bringing in more popular castings. Like, they brought in the number 46510. They brought in the pink, they did the pink gasser, that was definitely a threshold. The antifreeze 83 Silverado. And value on these started to really increase. It wasn't a niche that it used to be, and it became more and more mainstream. And as it became more and more popular, and I'm skipping over a lot of history, of course, but as it became more and more popular, the RLC, their structure for membership, they basically created a window for members to sign up for the year. There was a membership model or several, and if you didn't sign up in that 1 or 2 week period, I can't remember how long it was, then you were unable to sign up and have access to the models that sold throughout the year. So if you didn't sign up then you were out of luck for a year until they opened up the window the following year for that, you know, for that next upcoming year. So let's do the Nissan 86 720 King Cab, new casting. Can't wait to open this one up. We'll put this one in various positions as well. So it started gaining, and then, you know, the models got more popular. They started investing more money in these models, and we started seeing over time more originals. And when I say originals, castings, like licensed castings, built, upgraded by Brendan Vituski, typically designed by Brendan Vituski, moving parts. This model is a great example of that. He innovative features like the lowrider, like this that we'll get to. Here, I'll show you the back of this one. 720 King Cab. You can read that if you would like. Really cool. And I'm going to get this one off of the, this one doesn't appear to be screwed in, so we'll just pop this one out. Cannot wait to open it. Anyway, Brendan, there was so much interest. Brendan started designing all these innovative, here, I'll just pull this out, castings that they were, you know, far more expensive to produce they had to be produced for RLC. They couldn't be in regular premium because they're just too expensive to produce. So they would be, you know, they would be $10, $20, $30 in premium. They couldn't do it. So these were built, okay, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. They found it viable, with enough people interested in the Redline Club, they found it viable to invest in original castings with original features in this direct-to-consumer model. And they put Brendan Vituski on the task of making these models, and he obviously did cars he's interested in, he did JDM, he did all kinds of things, including something like this. And the idea was these innovative castings in these original colors, Spectraflame colors, would prove, and then some upgraded like they used to do, like upgraded normal castings, would prove to be popular. And they did. You know, they're more expensive. They figured we can sell these at a higher price because we put more money into their development, and people would come in and get them, and then we would open up the membership. So that's where we're at. Let's pause for a second to look at this thing. This thing is so cool, and I'm sorry I started talking through it. This one obviously has the adjustable rear portion, which is another true innovation by Brendan and the team, and this is just something special to behold. It obviously pivots like you would see, has got some incredible detail with the Masters of the Universe. It's so cool. I have seen this obviously in the sneak peeks that we've done, but now I have it in hand. Metal chassis, by the way. It is just an incredibly cool model, and I mean, I don't know who would argue against this model being just so fantastic with this little pivoting piece on it. And I mean, and it really does adjust in all kinds of directions. That thing is just amazing. And this is what I'm talking about. With the investment that RLC, or that Mattel has put into the RLC, it truly, from a product standpoint, has never been better, right? So they said, we get enough people, we can open up memberships year round, we get enough people coming in, paying for these memberships, buying these cars, let's invest in these models and in developing these models, upgrading the castings to opening parts, to, you know, more detail, all this stuff. And then castings that have been popular, like the Gasser, upgraded, like the R34, upgraded, like the 510, upgraded, RX-7, upgraded, and then do so the Hakoska upgraded into an opening hood model. Then we have, like we said, the old is like existing castings done in this Spectre Flame model as well. So, you know, it's like, that's what they saw. They saw an opportunity to expand it. And yes, people could say, oh, it's a cash grab, they want more money. Well, they're a business. Can't argue that point. But they saw, if we do upgraded models, we open up the membership, we can make all of these cool models available to more people and continue to invest in that. So that was the model. That is what made RLC better than ever, in my opinion, from a product standpoint. But it also made it worse from a concept standpoint, if that makes sense. All right, let's keep going, and we'll talk through that. Now let's open this up. Let's talk about the 1970 Mustang Boss 302. This is a casting that was made originally for premium in the vintage racing line back in 2011. Then we've seen it move to basic. We've seen it modified slightly for basic. No numbers on this. I don't think there's any numbers on any of these, by the way. But we see it show up occasionally. This is maybe the third or fourth time it's shown up as an RLC upgraded casting or upgraded model in the Spectre Flame. The blue one is probably the most popular, but this gold one, that's I don't know if you'd call it gold. This is definitely a Spectre Flame yellow. As far as the Mustang castings go, this was my favorite until Brendan did the Fox body, that I think is just fabulous. But this one does look really good in this color. It does stand out. 5 spokes look good. Chrome lipped 5 spokes, which I think is actually kind of cool. If they didn't have that chrome lip, I would have been a little bit hesitant about just the gray. But I think this thing's beautiful. Some of you bought this, some of you didn't. I think this casting merits, you know, I collect at least the premium versions of this, and I'm very, very happy to have that one. So one thing I want to say, you're seeing my argument. I think these products are fantastic. I don't know who would argue that these aren't great. But I do see one thing that at one point I wanted to make. Sometimes when RLC models get posted, let's do the Hakoska. This is a selections model. This was the color, the model was chosen by members, and in a vote, we're doing one now, I think. I think the R34 was what was chosen for this next round. But the model gets chosen by members, and then the color, and then Steve Vandervate does the design. And this Hakoska was picked. The Hakoska was designed, this one was based on Junimai's original, like the 510, but then opening hood was added, and then they made it more of like a factory style with the headlights instead of the headlight covers, and a few other elements that make this more of like the GTR style instead of the modified GTX. There is this, there is that, if you want to freeze that. I've had this in my possession forever and I haven't opened it. I finally get to do it. Anyway, sometimes when these are shown, people will say, why would you pay $30 or $20 or $25 or whatever for this when you could spend $25 or $20 or $15 on a Mini GT? And I say this, and I always think that's kind of a weird thing to say, because they're two very different models. And I hope everyone understands, I'm a huge Mini GT fan. I collect them, just love the brand, love what it's doing. And Mini GT and other brands like Tarmac Global 64 and others are really doing some amazing realistic models in 164, Tomic Limited Vintage, of course. But that's not what these are. These are not meant to compete with those, and they are more expensive because of the development that goes into them and the marketing and the direct consumer and everything else. And yes, because there's a perception of rare. I'll talk about that and why that's a problem. But it's also, these are supposed to be, and I've talked about this, this is an expansion of the Hot Wheels universe, these models. Let's open up this hood on this one. There's a problem right there. Look at that big gash in the paint. That's something, I mean, that's a whole, when you're paying this much for a model like this, you definitely don't want to see that. So that's another thing that I know has frustrated collectors and frustrated me as well. Let's see if I can get this. There we go. This engine opens so you can kind of see that, but the details on the engine are pretty fabulous. This is not my favorite version. I know it's based on the racing. I like that chrome version better, and a couple of the even the membership in blue, and a couple of the convention models I like better. But this is still a nice casting, and I'll obviously add it to the collection. It's very nicely detailed. The interior is nice on this one too. So these are models. These are an expansion of the Hot Wheels universe. Like these are nostalgic, kind of like unique premium pieces based on the Hot Wheels world and what Hot Wheels cars are, as like these $1 basics that are played with. So they're not competing with Mini GT. So if you'd rather spend your money on a realistic Mini GT, then you should. But to compare these to a Mini GT, it's not fair to Mini GT. It's not fair to Hot Wheels, because they're completely different. I mean, they're just a different kind of product. And I always think that that's just not a viable argument. And I always see I don't know why, if some people just don't like RLC or had a bad experience, it's just not a valid argument, because it's like an RLC is its own thing and a Mini GT is its own thing. Now, if you want to compare a Mini GT to another realistic 164, I would do that. Or if you want to compare it to Elite 64, that Hot Wheels seems to be they're venturing into that more detailed, unique wheels, all that sort of thing, I would definitely do that. But I wouldn't do it based on RLC, because it's just not a fair comparison, because they're two completely different products. And this is an upgraded. It's like, if you don't want an upgraded Hot Wheels car, then don't buy the RLC. If you think that you're getting something like ultra realistic to scale, well, that's not what you're going to buy here. So that's one of the arguments I have. So from a product perspective, for what RLC is supposed to be when it comes to the actual product, I will finally, and I've said it enough times, this has never been better. The casting choices are amazing. I mean, think about this. We have a Honda Integra Type R. I just opened a Nissan 720 hardbody truck. We've got 510s. We've got lowriders, classic muscle, classic JDM. Euro is making more of a play in this world. We've seen some BMWs and so on and so forth. Mercedes is coming. Yet, so variety, upgrade, choices. I mean, I'm gonna open a Honda Integra Type R in yellow right now. That's pretty sweet. And if you're a Hot Wheels collector and you like Hot Wheels JDM and you like Hot Wheels variety, this is exactly what you want. I know for me as a collector, this is exactly what I want. So I'm thrilled with this. But why has the RLC never been worse? It's because they don't know what to do with this. Because one thing, and I was wrong, I will admit to it right now how wrong I was. Let's take a look at this car. I'll show you the engine. We've had the white version, white with white rims, which I still probably, I don't know why I have to like one better than the other, because this is super cool in yellow. This is quite the duo, the two of these. The two Type R's, yellow and white. They look fantastic together, I'm sure. I can't wait to put them together. I'll put this on the turntable by itself as well. But one of the elements of the RLC that made them cool was the fact that these were super limited. Now, I understand the dilemma that Hot Wheels had, because they're like, if we're going to open up the membership to everybody, we're going to have to produce enough to make people not 100% frustrated that they're not getting them. That was number one. Number two is if we have them numbered, something that's numbered up to 5,000 or even 10,000 or 12,000 is one thing versus 30. We've seen a couple like numbered to 30. I know they're making more than that. I don't know how many more they're making of these castings now. I don't know how many of those Integrals, but what if it's 40? What if it's 50? Unless you get a really low number, the numbering doesn't add to the perception of rarity. So I was of the opinion, yeah, ditch the numbering because the perception is more important than the actual number. 50,000 doesn't seem like it's rare, even though compared to basic production it is, but it doesn't create any perception of rarity, so you wouldn't number them. Yet, I thought that they would still stay rare and they would sell out, but that hasn't happened. These models, surprisingly, are not selling out, and I think part of it is because there's been some complaints about quality, there's been some complaints, but I think ultimately we as collectors don't buy them because we have lost that perception that we have something or that a collector has something that someone else doesn't. And as much as we want to admit that we don't care about that, and some might say they don't, we do. That's why super treasure hunts are what they are, is because they are hard to find. That's why it's just an element of the collecting world that whether we want to admit it or not, is a huge portion of it. And RLC hasn't figured out how to keep these somewhat rare or give a perception of rarity and have a quality that matches it. Does that make sense? Let's talk about this RX-7. This is a great example. I think in general there was a lot of excitement about an RX-7 being done for RLC, modified with an opening hood, but obviously no number on it would have been here. They needed to produce enough of it because it was going to be a very popular model. Here, by the way, I'll freeze that for you before I open it up. But because it's there, that perception of rare is being going, people are going to start looking at this casting more about since there's no rarity factor, the aesthetic is going to be a more important element of this. Does that make sense? It may sound like this is important, but it just is what we are as collectors. People will want this if it's rare, but if it's not rare, people are going to scrutinize it a little bit more because they're going to want to make sure it satisfies what they want as a collector, which basically makes this an expensive basic. Does that make sense? There's no value in its rarity, so there has to be value in its quality and its execution. From this angle, the execution is great. From the engine angle, it doesn't have the detail that people want to pay $30 for. And hence, this car hasn't sold out. And there's been a lot of complaints about it, which surprised me at first, but we like what we like. We think what we think. And when there are enough collectors saying the execution of that engine, that kind of blobby style on this, it just doesn't have the crispness that I think collectors were hoping for with this casting, then they start saying, hey, I would rather have an RX-7 done by a brand like Mini GT or Tarmac or Tomica Limited Vintage than this one, because it is an upgraded Hot Wheels, yes, but it isn't at the level that I am paying it's worth paying that much more for, unless I knew it was going to be rare. Unless it was like one of 15,000 and I had a chance of maybe pulling like the 97 out of 15,000 or something like that. That's the psychology of this. This doesn't live up to the expectation of what collectors want. Now, take all those factors away, and I love it. I think it's great. I mean, I'm looking at this. I mean, as a model, I'm going to take the cost aside. I'm going to take that fact. I'm going to factor that out of it. I'm going to look at the silhouette. I'm going to look at the design. Brendan did an amazing job. The spoiler looks really cool as a separate piece. Interior's done well. I understand a little left to be desired in the engine. Execution, in terms of the tampos and everything else, but those 5 spokes look amazing. I think it's a great model, but it may not be a $30 great model as has been pointed out, and I think rightfully so. So how does that get fixed? Let's talk about what I think is the best model so far released by the RLC. I don't know. It's either between this one or this one. I'm looking forward to the Mercedes. That might be, but I just think this GMC Typhoon is next level awesome. I'll show you the card. This is the last one we'll open, and then we'll be done with it. There is that. I maxed out. I think you could buy 2. I maxed out to get these because I really wanted this one. By the way, Mattel didn't send these. I bought all these. And they haven't been sending me the RLC. I've just, because by the time I get them, they're already sales, so there's no reason for me to show them, so I can show them now. But yeah, let's just open this thing up. I cannot wait. This thing's just so cool. GMC Typhoon, great, great choice. And obviously people wanted to see that after the Cyclone was done for basic, and we've seen it in premium. Spectre Flame Black, right? With the 5 spokes. I'll show you the engine. See, that does, I mean, it's still, I don't know, let's compare. Yeah, I mean, it's true. This one does have just more detail to it than the RX-7. And I think the fact that this is very much an original, it's not an upgraded version of anything. This is a built from scratch Typhoon. A really nice engine. I think this one, as an expansion of the Hot Wheels universe, and I think this one did sell out, who knows how many were made, I think collectors were way into buying this one just because it hits all the notes they wanted it to hit as a Hot Wheels car, as an upgraded Hot Wheels car, and the rarity factor wasn't as important. Now, it would be more, I mean, I think a resale value, this is not done for resale, but I think the resale value would be higher if it were perceived rare. So I don't know what Hot Wheels does about this, because I don't know if they limit memberships, because I know they need to maximize their investment in the RLC. I can't argue with that. They're a company. They have to do that stuff. At the same time, I do think there needs to be a better perception of rarity. And I know Hot Wheels is aware of this. I've had discussions with them about it. I don't know if there's, like, if you make some rare, some not. Like, if you release some in super limited numbers and then you do, you know, other versions not in super rare numbers. I'm not sure what the solution is, but I do think RLC will be much, much better if there is a perception or an actual effort into making these models, at least some of them, feel more exclusive, feel more rare, feel harder to get. We may think that just letting everybody get them is and let everybody who wants one to get one is a good thing, because, and it is obviously conceptually, but in this world of collecting, there has to be some element of rarity. There has to be some element of, hey, if I don't get this now, I don't get it. And we, as collectors, and especially as Hot Wheels collectors, we answer to that. Be honest with yourself. And I know there'll be people who make comments like, it's not true, I don't care, I just want them. And there are some cars, it's like, I don't care if they're rare or not, I just want them. But that there is some science and there's some psychology to that as collectors. And Hot Wheels, if they're not tapping into it with the RLC, then they're losing, then that's what's creating a lot of the, I think, the frustration of the RLC. These models don't live up to what collectors want in terms, with rarity removed, the cost of these is too much for collectors, and they're being a little more picky about what they buy. This will supersede all because it's just fantastic. Some of these models won't. Okay, that's my long-winded showcase about where RLC is. I like RLC. I'm a big fan. I love so many of these models, and I'm really excited to put these into the collection. But I'm getting it a little more from what collectors have been complaining about. I understand what it is. Whether I agree with it or not, I understand where this is coming from and some of this frustration, yet I see so much to like here as well. I hope you guys leave your thoughts down below. Keep it cool, but ultimately keep it nice. But I want to hear what you think about RLC, good and bad. Maybe we're just barking up the wrong tree with this and everybody's really happy with some of these products, but I know everyone isn't, so I hope that that's something that that can be dialogued. Thank you guys for, if you stayed through this entire video, hopefully you enjoyed it. These are cool cars. Thanks everybody. Bye.